What's up, everybody? So today we are going to get into food caches. In survival books, I've read that one of the key things you should ever do in a survival situation or out in nature in general is to observe what the wildlife does and look for the food sources that they eat, what it is that they're living off of, and that might be something that you potentially could eat and stuff as well. So obviously a big one is acorns. It's around that season where the squirrels are starting to dig up their holes and hide all the tree nuts and everything. So that kind of gave me an idea about making some food caches and doing a video about food caching up that. I also figure why not go ahead and boil up some acorns and have us a little snack. So that's what we're going to focus on today. Let's get into it. So, I've already gone out and I gathered me up some white oak acorns. And now that I've got the harvest, I want to feed myself, but I also want to prepare something that I can store some of this in for the winter. So, I'm taking a look at my acorns here to find out if there's any holes in them. I don't want any weaver grubs in there. They're tiny little grubs that will more or less eat the food, the acorn, the nut inside. So if you've got little holes in the shell, throw it away. You don't want those. There's most likely a grub inside. So I've got about 6 of them here. I brought myself a old towel of mine, and I'm just gonna wrap these up in here, about 6 or 7 at a time here. Get them in a nice little grab. Take myself a rock and a nice hard object here, or some kind of a hard object, and then I'm going to use the back of my hatchet and I'm going to break those shells up a bit. Now we'll take a look inside. That worked out decent. I can now peel off any of the extra shell and just get the white meat out of it. While you're doing this, just keep an eye out for those grubs, just to make sure they're not in there. This is why you want to be looking for a weaver grub when you break into these, because as you can see, there is one in there. Usually they have a little hole, but they're pretty easy to spot once you start breaking them open. And yeah, if you see that, just get rid of them. So we got ourselves a nice good portion of acorns here, and we've got a little dish of water started boiling here in the fire. The thing about acorns is that they have tannins in them, and tannins are not something that you want to consume. So you actually have to boil those tannins out of them.
So I've got a little dish going on there, and I'm going to leach the tannins out of them. You can also cold leach them by putting cold water in there and letting it sit for a while, and then swapping that out with some fresh. Even with the boiling here, we're going to have to probably do this 3 times to get it down to be not too bitter, and even more times if you really want to get out all of the tannins. It will taste just a little less bitter if you do that. So let's go ahead and get this one boiling. All right. And we will go ahead and get some water in here, get this rinsed out, and essentially when that gets to the point that it's looking brown water inside of there, we will go ahead and swap it. We will dump out the water from there, and we will dump it back into here. All right, so since we got those acorns boiling in there, and we're going to be swapping those tannins for a while, we still have tons of acorns over here, and the goal is to build ourselves a little cache to be able to seal up and keep those acorns from any other creature being able to get to them, so that at a later date we can use them. Now the nice thing about these caches is that you can put berries inside of them. You can put other kinds of nuts that you might find. You could even store some meat inside of it if you've got some smoked meat. And the main goal is to keep it so that mice and other rodents won't necessarily be able to get in and get to your food source that you're going to need for the winter. So, got ourselves a nice little cleaned up log here, and we're going to go ahead and use our knife. We're going to take this down about 1/4 onto the log, and we will go ahead and split it. All right, so we got a decent split here. We're going to go ahead and use our chisel to go ahead and start burrowing down into this. All right, as you can see, those tannins are very dark in there. So now that it's nice and dark like that, I'm going to go ahead and strain out the nuts, and we're going to just dump this tannin water right on the ground. Okay, now that those tannins are poured out of there, we're going to go ahead and take the acorns and we're going to dump them into the other steel dish, and we will go ahead and boil them again to remove more of those tannins. Not sure if you could see or not, but the water that time was probably half as dark as it was the last time. Okay, so I am hearing some rather big thunderstorms. They're coming in out that direction. Yeah, it's pretty loud thunder. I knew that thunderstorms would potentially be on their way. I'd hope they'd either pass, but it sounds like they're coming closer. So, as much as I would love to go deeper with this, this is essentially what we're doing over here. I am using a chisel. If you don't have a chisel yet in your survival pack, tell you what, they can be extremely useful. So you should probably consider buying one, just a 1/2-inch one, even a small one if you have to. But yeah, essentially you can make things like this. This is me just kind of carving out the center of a tiny log here. I was going to do another one where I was going to do a bigger, fatter, wider log and put a cap on it. And show you guys that, but with the way things are going, this more or less shows the principle. If you didn't have a chisel, what you would want to do is essentially use your fire to make some tongs and pull out coals, and you essentially lay the coals onto here, right? So then that coal is more or less sitting on the wood. Now you have to keep a better eye on it, but as that coal starts to burn down and sinks into the wood, you get the coal off of there, and then you can use a stone and you can start kind of chipping away. It takes a lot longer to make something like this doing that, but it is a method to how you can do this if in full-on survival you just do not have a chisel. But again, I recommend throwing a chisel inside your survival pack. It is a extremely great tool for many, many uses. But in this instance, I would love to have made this deeper. I am going to go ahead and call it here on this one. It gives you a great example though. But the whole premise is now we can fill it with acorns, and the way we split it, I can't tell if I'm already hearing raindrops or not, but the way we split it, you just have to figure out exactly where your seam was. And as you see, that's just a nice log, right? So you could wrap this up or nail it shut, wrap it with some paracord, nice and tight, and you can go ahead and store your berries or your food or whatever inside of it so that the mice can't get to your storage. So let's go ahead and throw some acorns in here. I know it's not going to be a crazy abundance in this one, but you know, it takes about 50 acorns to get yourself a solid meal, snack. So in the end, I've been working on this for a couple hours here while I've been cooking up the acorns. But as you can see, that right there is close to 50. So at the end of the day, you might have to maneuver a couple, you know, but get that nice and tied up and you've got yourself a nice cache of acorns for a later date for winter. That's one of the biggest things with this is that, you know, winter comes around in a survival situation. If you're not getting game, this could be a lifesaver for you. You know, having this backup of acorns that you tied up, you know, at the very early fall and put up in a tree next to, you know, the white oak that you know drops a bunch of acorns out there, and you get 6, 7, 8 of these up there, this ends up becoming a very important meal for you. So I know it seems kind of ridiculous, but food caches like this, take it into consideration. You may want to do this with something a little bit more wet wood. I try to use as much wood as I can that's dead, because I don't necessarily just want to cut down a tree if I really don't need to. But as you can see down here on the end of this, unfortunately, I had a split going through this wood. I thought I could make it work. I went a little too hard. I rushed a little bit too much on the edges, and because of it, I ended up breaking that. Now, I mean, if I had some resin, could kind of make some resin glue up, potentially put it back together. But yeah, so unfortunately, that is too bad. But hey, hope you guys enjoy learning about making yourself a little cache like this. You could do it in a much bigger log. Essentially, the one I'm sitting on, what I was going to show you is I was going to do it on a more round one like this and saw off the top so it had a nice cap on it, and then chisel down interiorly into this. So you can make yourself a nice little jar. I mean, that's how you would potentially start a cup or a bowl or anything else. So, yeah. All right, well, we're on our third boil of the acorns back here, so we're going to primarily focus on one more boil on that, hopefully before this rain gets in here, and we can eat some acorn. But yes, I hope you guys find this one to be an intriguing one. So buy yourself a chisel. Get yourself a good chisel. It's maybe a little bit hard to see there, but this is the third boil, and you can see we got some tan, kind of muddier colors now, not as dark brown. We're going to go ahead and dump that out and give it one more boil. I'm going to go for 4 boils for this one, just to take as many tannins as I can out and try and make it a little less bitter. All right, so we threw the acorns back in for one more boil to get them to 4. I do have one here though from 3. Once you've done it 3 times, can be a little bitter still, but is edible. So let's give it a try. I don't think that's really bitter at all. I guess maybe a very little bit on the end taste there. So yeah, we'll give it one more boil, and we'll see if that takes out that little bitter taste at the end. Definitely very earthy is the best way I can describe it. Almost chalky. Boom, Big Thunder. Boom! It's coming for me. It doesn't want me to eat my acorns. My precious acorns! Okay, let's go ahead and get this off of here. It's pretty hot, it looks like, so it's still a little bit cloudy in there. Definitely looks like I can still see the acorns in the bottom though, so definitely boiling clearer this time. Less brown. 3 times is the minimum. You can eat it. Still a bit bitter. Up to 10 times. If you can do it 10 times, you will most likely get all of the tannins out of it, or you'll be so freaking close, you wouldn't even taste it.
I'll let that cool down, and we will go ahead and eat some of that. So, we like to use hypotheticals on this channel because hypotheticals are a great way to kind of experiment and play with thoughts for survival situations. So, the cache here may seem like a small thing that you would just go, why wouldn't I use buckets? Why wouldn't I use bags? Why wouldn't I use jars? And so we're just playing off of the hypothetical that maybe, you know, a civil war were to break out, maybe a full-on war invasion were to take place, maybe, you know, something like your power just went out, a circuit grid went down, and, you know, there was no way that anybody could get there fast. Maybe you have I guess a natural disaster isn't probably the best for this situation to describe, but I don't know, maybe something like a gigantic solar flare comes from the sun and takes out all electronics on Earth, and we're in a full-on apocalyptic scenario. What I'm just simply trying to say is that if you're out in the middle of nowhere, being able to gather up and storage an abundance of food like animals do, at least like squirrels, you know, they're constantly hiding away, nuts and everything like that. So in this situation, I'm thinking like a squirrel, like get some caches made up. The larger you can make them, the better. Hide them around, get them sealed up, you know, wrap them with a rope, paracord, nail them shut, something so that the squirrels and mice and everything aren't going to get into them. You're probably not going to want to leave them all at your camp, even though you could leave a lot of them at your camp. Putting them somewhere out, putting them up high so that, you know, no bears can necessarily get into them. Just, you know, some way to provide as much food for yourself before winter comes as possible. Hopefully you've gotten a kill. Hopefully you've gotten some meat and everything like that, and these become less important. But I figure the more you could spread them out in a hypothetical situation, if someone's coming for you, if you need to, you know, move, you know where another stash of food is at. Hopefully like I believe it's a Chinese, maybe it's a Japanese proverb that a smart rabbit has 3 holes. So, you know, in a survival situation, hopefully you're out there first and foremost trying to build your initial survival spot. But then after that, having, you know, any tiny dugouts that you can go focus on building in other locations just in case, you know, a group of marauders or a militia were to come through or something, and you were just trying to evade them, just trying to be able to harvest your own resources, survive, and make it through the winter. Again, these are all theoreticals, these are all hypotheticals, but hey, this is why we do these things. Learn how to make this stuff, prepare ourselves for the worst scenarios, and hope that they never come. Yummy. I'm gonna get me a little bit of ash with my acorns. Ooh, those are quite hot still. All right, hopefully they're not bitter. Oh yeah. That definitely, for some reason, just has the taste of fall. It's hard to describe if you've never eaten it. What I would love to do after boiling them like this would be to get a nice cast iron skillet, throw a bit of salt on there, maybe a teeny bit of olive oil, and just get these browned up a little bit more, dried out a little bit more. But honestly, they're really good. It may not seem like much, but this would do a lot for you in a survival situation. In between trying to get that next hunt, that next fish. I mean, considering I only broke up about, I don't know, close to 30. That's a solid little meal there for 30 acorns. A lot of work to boil them up and you know, go through this process. So you definitely would probably want to be working on doing the cold leaching. getting as much of this as you could processed, and, you know, something that you don't have to necessarily be sitting here boiling, switching water and everything like that. Well, everyone, I'm going to enjoy my acorn snacks here before this thunderstorm rolls in. It is starting to get nice and dark there over on the horizon. I might have even just heard a couple raindrops. So I'm going to wrap up eating these up. I'm going to put the fire out, and I am going to go ahead and call it one. So listen, if you've never come by the channel before, thank you for coming by, first of all. But also, consider a like and a subscribe. It does wonders to help the channel grow. I am out here constantly trying different things. As you can see behind me, there's a big hole being dug. I'm currently working on a nice fall dugout shelter back here. So there's a lot to look forward to. I appreciate you. Everybody stay wild. Thank ya. Have a great day. Catch you in the next one. Acorns. Showering you with acorns. Have a great day. Survive like squirrels. Hopefully we never have to survive like squirrels. Make an acorn rain. Hope this video isn't too acorny for ya. Thanks for watching the video. I'm just being weird. See you in the next one.